back to Unaware Commentary, the place for Pokemon TCG battle narration that doesn't care about the stats.
Welcome back, trainers, to another exciting Pokemon TCG battle narration here on the channel. We are catching up with our players as the battle is about to commence. We have our player 1 on the left with the starters mat, our player 2 on the right with the Mega Evolutions champion mat. Should be an exciting game here, as going first in the Pokemon TCG it can make a huge difference, where you are able to get those evolutions on display. You're also able to attack first if you go second. You see our players getting started here. Our player 1 on the left going to be going first, drawing for the turn, putting a Buddy Poffin going into the deck to find 2 basic Pokemon with 70 HP or less and place them onto the bench. They are starting a Badoo in the active position with a Monkey Dory on the bench with his Adrenabrain ability. Our player 2 starting a Torchic in the active position. No additional bench Pokemon going to be available to him. You see a Dragapult and some energy into that opening hand, as well as a Dragapult, hoping that we can find something actually get out here. Going to see a Dark Energy finding its way onto the Monkey Dory, and a pass over to our player 2. No attack going to come out, as it was just the first turn of the game. We do find a Dreepy off of the draw. Looking at that hand, not going to see a draw supporter available here. Do we see potentially an attack coming out from this Torchic? This Torchic can do enough damage that it is capable of knocking out a Pokemon. No, we are going to see an early boss's order is going to bring up a Dreepy into the active position and try to challenge our player 1 to be able to get it out of the active position to see an H-Palm. You see a crushing hammer being played, heads being flipped, that fire energy being put in the discard pile. Not a huge deal for this Dragapult Blaziken deck, as Blazeken is known for being able to get those energies out of the discard pile. A big reason to play the Blaziken version of this Dragapult deck in the current TCG meta is its ability to be able to get those energies out of the discard pile and effectively power up a Dragapult or itself in a single turn. You see our player 1 playing a Lily's Determination, shuffling the hand into the deck and drawing 8 cards, as no prize cards have yet been taken. Going to see 8 fresh resources here. We did see the playing of a Dracloak onto the bench, but that Recon Directive had not been used yet and was from the previous hands prior to the Lily's Determination. You see the benching of a Dreepy off of that fresh hand, the playing of a Buddy Poffin, going to go into the deck, not going to pull any Pokemon out, just going to shuffle back up. No additional basics going to be chosen as an option here. Seeing those hammers come out, it is possible that it is the Dusknoir line of the deck, or it could just be straight hammer pulls with those hammers doing additional work for the deck. We're going to see our first Recon Directive from the active Dracloak that was just evolved. Looks like, considering between the 2 cards here, did look like potentially a Lily's Determination finding its way into the hand. A second Recon Directive here, not going to be able to quite see what those choices are. Will be interesting to see if, it's going to be a Pokepad. We are going to see it played right away, not even going to make its way all the way into the hand. Pokepad going into the deck to find a non-blue box Pokemon. Placing into the hand, it is going to be a third Dracloak, likely to be able to find its way onto the bench on the following turn, be able to set up a full Recon Directive engine here to be able to see lots of cards each turn and make selections. We're going to see the attachment of a Dark Energy to the active A Retreat, and we're still going to get an Itchy Pollen off this turn. Going to lock our player 1 out of any options of being able to play item cards this turn. To see the drawing of a Combusken, we do see the evolution into a Dracloak on the bench. The choice between a Night Stretcher and a Lily's Clefairy. Night Stretcher potentially able to get that energy out of the discard pile, but potentially not the option if that Lily's Clefairy is going to play a better role. We do the option of evolving the active into that Combusken, who has the Combustion attack, which would do 20 damage to the active Badoo, actually turning into 40 damage, as that Badoo is weak to fire, so potentially a way to get the price trade started. But is it a bait Badoo? Is it potentially going to set up our player to get unfair stamps? We are just going to see the attachment of the energy and a collect. Not even going to do 20 damage, just going to try to see some additional resources here and draw a card as possible. That we do see a Dragapult attack this turn. We did see the evolution into a Dracloak, the first Recon Directive happening, a second Recon Directive going to be a fourth Dracloak finding its way into the hand. The last Recon Directive is going to be a Lily's Determination finding its way into the hand. So we do have options for supporters here. We even have a Meowth to play if we want to find something like a Crispin. I am not seeing a Dragapult though. It did look like potentially an Yveltal in the hand as an option to possibly trap this Torchic in the active. We didn't see the evolution into the Combusken on the previous turn, which is interesting. You see the attachment of a Fire Energy and the playing of a Lily's Determination, so we're not going to see a Crispin play this turn. We didn't deal any damage to the active Badoo, so we don't have any option to Adrenabrain on the current turn. If we do find a Dragapult, it's possible that we will hold it in the hand, as we want to make sure that we have access to all 3 of those Recon Directives on the following turn to be able to access as many resources as possible. Lily's Determination being found on a later Recon Directive, unfortunate, as it wasn't able to be played, and then have a follow-up. We do see the unfair stamp in the hand, so this Badoo could end up being a trap. We do see the playing of two Buddy Buddy Poffins, the assumption being that we're going to fail the first and then utilize the second to find something potentially like a Treevee, or if there is a secondary line in the deck, something like a Dusknoir, or if there is a thin Blaziken line available to our player one. Though those hammers tend to take up those extra spots that those other evolutionary lines may take up, as well as tech cards like the Develtal that we've seen in the previous hand. We did see attachment of the fire energy already. We do see the playing of a Risky Ruins that'll deal 2 damage to all non-dark type Pokemon that find their way onto the bench, and an additional Itchy Pollen going to deal another damage to the active Torchic. We did see a rare candy being drawn and not going to be able to be played by our player 2, which is very unfortunate. Not evolving into that Combusken on the previous turn, also going to be a punishment here, as we wouldn't be able to play any of the item cards to go get a Blaziken, but we also don't have a good means of wanting to evolve into that Dragapult either. If we evolve into Dragapult and then we lose the ability to recon directives, so something like that unfair stamp that we see also in our player 2's hand, if we take a knockout here, would be extra brutal. We may just see a retreat into the Dragapult. Looked like it was maybe a consideration. Going to play a Meowth onto the bench, its last ditch catch ability, going to allow for our player to go into the deck and find a supporter card to put into their hand. Potentially something like a Lily's Determination if we're unhappy with this hand and we want to continue setting up. Looks like it is going to be the supporter of choice, unlike something like a Crispin that could be used to set up. So energies on that bench Dracloak are going to see the retreat of the Torchic out of the active position. Going to want to try to protect it for future turns, though it is in a position where it could very easily get Phantom Dive the less we see the playing of the Combusken onto it, as we do now, potentially considering taking a knockout on the Badoo with that Combustion attack. We are going to see the playing of the Lily's Determination, shuffling that hand that had a Dragapult, and a rare candy available in it. We already recon directive, but we are going to get to see 8 cards off of this Lily's Determination. We may find some resources that can get us into additional cards, though item cards are going to be locked up for this turn because of the Itchy Pollen that was utilized by the Badoo on the previous turn, and put those damage counters that we see on the active Combusken. We see a Boss's Orders, a Buddy Buddy Poffin that we cannot play, additional Dreepy that we can put on the bench to potentially set up for more recon directives, and we are going to see the bumping of the Stadium with 18 Rockets Watchtower, going to take away the abilities of all normal types. Things like that Meowth EX, often the hammer version of Dragapult may play a Finn in the Dunsparce line, so that would not be an active resource and ability for our player one to be able to draw cards off of that resource. Do see the consideration of some cards here not going to be able to play into those items. Do we consider benching a Monkey Dory so that we are able to combat the Monkey Dory wars on the opposing side? We are going to see that Combustion coming down, dealing 40 damage to that active Badoo, taking a knockout, a prize card being taken, but also turning on things like Flip the Script and Unfair Stamp that we know are in our player one's hand. We do see a recon directive. It is going to take an Ultra Ball off of that one, putting a hammer to the bottom of the deck. Going to take a Monkey Dory off the second one, putting an unknown card to the bottom, couldn't quite see it, and a Pokepad going to be the third selection. All 3 of our recon directives being played prior to the Unfair Stamp. Just want to see what resources we are truly going to have available. The attachment of the Psychic Energy out of the hand. Very strong possibility we see a Phantom Dive here as the Ultra Ball is utilized, discarding a Pokepad and a Monkey Dory, both spawned off of the recon directives and turning them into a Dragapult EX in the active position with its 320 HP. The attacks of Jet Headbutt, dealing 70 damage to an active Pokemon, or Phantom Dive, it is most notorious attack, dealing 200 damage and being able to rain down 60 damage counters of choice onto our bench Pokemon. Going to see the Boss's Orders come down. Which is our supporter card for the turn. Going to grab that Dracloak off the bench, pull it into the active, and the Unfair Stamp as that Badoo was knocked out on the previous turn, and going to cause our players to shuffle their hands into the deck. Our player 2 going to draw just 2 cards, our player 1 going to draw 5 cards. Going to see what resources are going to be available. There is a Pheasantipity in the hand that can be benched and the Flip the Script activated to draw 3 additional cards. Almost nothing better to be seen after an Unfair Stamp other than a full Lily's Determination. Then Flip the Script. Not going to see that benching, as we don't want to put the additional liability in play. It seems we are going to see a Phantom Dive come down. It's going to knock out the active. We're going to rain down damage counters as appropriate. Looks like we're going to find 30 damage counters on to the Meowth, 2 damage counters, 20 damage counters on each of the additional Pokemon. Going to see the promotion of the Combusken into the active position here. Looks like we are 3 cards here. Do we have a second Meowth in play? Oh no, our own Team Rocket's Watchtower turns off our Meowth, so the Ultra Ball doesn't even allow us to go get that. Do we go get a Blazeken EX just to be able to start dealing damage? Our Blaziken EX is going to be too big for Phantom Dive to be able to take an individual knockout on it, but if we deal damage to the Dragapult, we are activating the ability of Adrenabrain to be able to take more damage. There is a Dracloak in the hand going to be evolved onto the Dreepy on the bench. It looks like the consideration between a Hammer and a Night Stretcher is there a resource on the discard pile that we want to be available to us. It looks like not going to be so. Going to potentially try to put our player 1 on the back foot with something like a Crushing Hammer. We do have a replacement stadium, but if we replace the stadium, we no longer have access to Ultra Ball to be able to put it in play. We are going to Ultra Ball. What are we going to look for here? We're just going to go grab the Blazeken so we're able to protect our Combusken. Blaziken EX going to come into play with its Seething Spirit ability, going to be able to attach its energy to itself or any of the other Pokemon in play from the discard pile. It looks like in the consideration of a second Fire Energy is going to find its way onto the Blaziken. With its Smolder Salt attack, I'm going to deal 200 damage to the active Dragapult, damage that can be manipulated now by that Monkey Dory's Adrenabrain. You got to remember that Blaziken EX does have damage from the previous Itchy Pollens that came down on it in the early turns, as well as some of those Phantom Dive damage counters. Not going to be enough that we're going to be able to likely see a knockout here, but going to significantly decrease what would be a high HP stat with that 320 HP on that stage 2 Blaziken EX. Looks like our player 1 playing a Pokepad going into the deck, considering what non-Bullbox Pokemon wants to be put in play, going to put a Dreepy back into play, as we want to have access to as many Recon Directives as possible. We've seen throughout the game that all 4 Dracloaks are available to our player, but it does seem like it's going to be difficult to get that additional Dracloak in play. But once we see it come down, just more options are going to be available. Something like an Unfair Stamp, less relevant when you have that many Recon Directives to be able to draw you back into your resources. As we're seeing here, additional Recon Directives, just being able to handpick off the top 2 what cards are going to be the most advantageous, putting a second Dragapult EX into play. I'm going to attach a Fire Energy, so going to limit some of those options initially, but maybe wanting to get the active Dragapult out of the active position, not give up those 2 prizes if we don't have to. You're going to see the activation of Adrenabrain going to rain down those damage counters onto the Dracloak. Going to see a Phantom Dive that's going to knock out the benched Dracloak and move damage onto the Meowth EX. The draw for the turn going to be a Dark Energy. That is the only card in hand for our player 2. A Smolder Salt here, going to be able to take a knockout on the active Dragapult EX, but the reply Phantom Dive also going to be able to take a knockout. I'm not even sure we can Smolder Salt this turn. We can't because of its activation. That is going to be the game, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. We will catch you next time.